I think poetry is probably more popular than ever due to the advent of social media. In addition to the enormous number of people publishing poetry via social media on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter/X, you have a lot of people reading it in that way as well. So you've got quite a boom in popularity over the past 10 years because it's so readily accessible. People can read poetry daily. It can be read in short bursts, and they can publish their own poetry much more readily than in perhaps print magazines. During the pandemic, in which we as a global people around the world were experiencing lockdown upon lockdown upon lockdown, and we were not able to connect to other people, poetry via the platform, it's important to stress that, via the website, enabled people to connect to other people. And the idea of just writing poetry in itself, we surveyed that as well. That helped people to feel more relaxed and feel less anxious. Well, reading and writing poetry, has advantages. It's an interesting one. I would have thought, what we found with the study is that it supported people's feelings of well-being. So we issued a survey, and over 400 people responded to our Warwick Edinburgh Mental Wellbeing Scale survey. And that survey, had pretty staggering results. So in terms of the numbers, we found that 82% of people felt that poetry helped them to actively express themselves. 80% of people felt inspired when they wrote poetry and or read poetry on the website. It brought people together. It helped people feel closer to other people. That was almost 70% of respondents. People felt less isolated. Over 50% of people felt less isolated. They found solace. They felt less bored. And those sorts of results were quite wonderful because they reinforced the idea that poetry in this day and age has a real part to play in people's health and their well-being. Study shows that poetry still has an active presence in our lives. And it still recognizes that poetry is a valuable means of communication, a valuable means by which we engage with our world at large and our own kind of internal selves. So I think, above all else, what we found is that, far from being an art form that has, been completely marginalized as we kind of pursue, novel digital medias, we found that the written word, the spoken word still held relevance. People were still invested in it. So poetry is, it's alive and well. And, it may not sell a lot of copies, but it certainly is something that people turn to in times of need, as we found with our study.